Welcome in for another edition of Armchair Quarterback. I'm David Allen, joined as always by Coach Guy Suttle, and back with us this week, Paul Foster. Each week we talk about our Cleveland County football teams. We'll talk about a little college football, a little pro football. A lot to talk about, though, in the playoffs in our high school teams. All four teams in action Friday night, all four teams advancing to the third round of the state playoffs in each of those four different classifications. We'll talk about that a little bit as we go. Let's start with the Burns Bulldogs, though, as they got a little taste of an upset-minded West Stanley team, and that's about all they got of that one, Coach.
Yeah, it was all Burns. I mean, it just, what can we say this week as compared to what's going to happen down the road? And right now, Burns was able to establish the run, and that helped out tremendously.
We got highlights coming up here. 3 turnovers in a row, though, for the Dogs in the first quarter, I think, Paul. 3 fumbles on 3 consecutive possessions. Normally, you would think in the second round of the playoffs, you turn it over 3 straight possessions, you're probably going to be behind and potentially out of the game. Instead, just kind of a little bump in the road for the Bulldogs on Friday night.
Yeah, I tell you what, that usually adds up to a lot of problems, David. You're exactly right. But for Burns, it was a good balance. You were talking about, Guy, how well they rushed. They rushed for almost 270 yards in the game. They passed for 235. So I think that was a big thing as well on offense, because a lot of times, we would look at, just one component of that being the thing that was helpful to Burns, and the running game has improved, especially since they moved into the postseason.
Well, we saw Drew Dixon on quarterback keeper there. You see a pick 6 for the Dogs, but Drew, not only did he have that one nice carry there for the touchdown, Coach, but he had, I think, a 75 and a 61-yard touchdown pass, so 2 long touchdown passes for the Bulldogs. And, of course, when you are a running football team and other team, commits all 11 folks to the run, there are opportunities in the pass game, and that's what Burns took advantage of on Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, we see it whether it's in college or pro or whatever. If someone is primarily on the run, they're going to put all 11 guys within 5 yards of the football, and that makes a simple throw into a big gain yards after the catch. Here's one of the turnovers that you were talking about. It was just it was good to see that Burns could have that balance between run and pass. It's certainly going to give Bavard something to work on this week.
Well, West Stanley overmatched in that ball game. They were a 2-win team coming in. They were a 1-win team going into the playoffs. Got the upset of Lexington in round 1. The slipper doesn't fit. 49-7, the Bulldogs, despite those early turnovers, just way too much for West Stanley on Friday night. Second game of the week, speaking of no glass slipper fitting, and again, hate it for our boy, Coach Darren Shepard and the Concord Spiders. Some connections there as he used to coach here in the county. But Paul, Crest early and often would be a good combination there of the scoring for the Chargers on Friday night.
Yeah, it was another one of those cases where at the end of the first quarter, Crest already had at least 4 touchdowns. It might have even been more this time. We were talking about what happened when they beat Kings Mountain a couple of weeks ago, 70-0. And, now Crest has won 8 games this season by over 34 points in those 8 games. So once they get started quick out of the gate, just like you see a move there going back, cutting across the field, as Michael Edwards is just the kind of talent that Crest can bring each and every week out there on the field.
Well, Coach, I mean, Concord overmatched again, to use that word, but what else can you say at this point in the season? You're in the second round of the playoffs. I know a lot of folks said because of the way the playoffs broke down this year, this was more like first-round games instead of, typical second-round games. And I guess some of the scores from our county opponents and in these 4 games on Friday night indicated that.
Yeah, and we've talked about common opponents. What are the common opponents? And Concord and Forest View played last week in the first round, and, Crest had already beaten Forest View pretty bad. So they had some common numbers there to compare. and it wasn't going to add up to be pretty at any point in time in this game.
No question about that. As you see the highlight package here, and that one's just one of those that, balls pops out, it's right in your hands, and you're going the other direction.
Reverse field.
Yeah, that was
That's it.
Paxton Dobbins, by the way, one of those defensive touchdowns where he just ripped the ball out of the running back's hands and took it to the house for Crest. That was one of the few times Concord got on Crest's side of the 50, and it didn't last long, as you saw there, a turnover, and Crest usually turned those turnovers into points as well.
Absolutely. Final score in this one, Crest, way too much for Concord in round 2, 69-6. The Chargers advanced. You've got to buy, and then you play a 69-6 game. Now, you're getting ready to play East Lincoln. We'll talk about that coming up in our second segment. Not sure how that works in Crest's favor. If you're beat up, you love to have those 2 weeks to get well.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see. We'll talk about that.
Or you could say 139 points in the last 2 games.
There you go. So we'll talk about that after the break. Third game of the week, this one the only close one, and this one was close to the end. Kings Mountain going up to T.C. Roberson, and here you see the safety early in the ball game on a bad snap, and he couldn't get it out of the end zone. I knew it was a 5-0 score, and it wasn't a baseball game, so I knew there had to be a safety involved, and yes, it was. So Kings Mountain got out early. Appreciate WLOS getting the highlights here for us, but this one was a good ball game all the way through. Kings Mountain pretty much in the lead most of the night, Coach. And there you see Tex Vaughn. We've been calling for Tex to get the football. 148 yards receiving, including that touchdown for the Mountaineers on Friday night.
Yeah, and like you said, we've been asking for this one for some time. Hey, and it was a great win for Kings Mountain. I don't think that a lot of people gave Kings Mountain a whole lot of chances going up the mountain, but it was very, very good to see them come out with a win. Also, with the way the game ended, I think it ended on a fumble by T.C. Robertson being down 1. It was, make sure I got this right, it was 18-12. Kings Mountain kicked the field goal, 21-12. T.C. scores, goes for 2, and gets it. So, an onside kick, I believe.
So 21-20 was the final in this one. Paul, as we were talking before we came on air, basically Roberson was putting themselves in a position to kick a field goal to win when they fumbled the football. So Kings Mountain, you call it dodging a bullet, whatever you want to call it. But they led wire to wire in this one, and they held on for that 1-point win.
Yeah, and David, I just want to say to Coach Straight-Heron and those players, you got to give them credit. Remember, 2 weeks ago they got embarrassed, 70-0. What have they done since then? They've gone into the playoffs. Yeah, they're in a different division than Crest, and what have they done so far? They've won 2 games. So, regardless of what happens the rest of the way, I think that's a great accomplishment for this young Kings Mountain team.
Absolutely. So here you see the final 21-20. Kings Mountain a win over T.C. Roberson, and again, Cleveland County stays unbeaten. Final game of the week, and this one I think we all were kind of jacked about this game.
Absolutely.
I mean, East Rutherford was 9-1, hadn't played Shelby in the playoffs in a long time, and they got a kid that can run the football, had 376 yards in a game earlier this year against High Brighton, and I think, and at least early in this game, Coach, and you were there for this one, there was some back and forth.
Yeah.
But East Rutherford trailing 21-14 went for it on 4th down in their own end of the field and turned it over. And after that, it was all over with.
Yes, but this kid right here keeps East Rutherford in the ball game. It was so frustrating. Shelby did cut down on the penalties, but this kid returns 2 kickoffs back to keep them in the ball game. And if we go back even to the Burns game, that's something that Shelby's going to have to make sure they're going to have to shore that up is the kickoff returns. But yes, they went for it on 4th down. Shelby stuffs them. To me, they went up 2 scores at that time, and that was virtually it.
Paul, the Golden Lions had the ball 8 times in the first half. They were 8 for 8 touchdowns. You can't. I mean, no defense in the country much less in the state of North Carolina, can give up 8 touchdowns on 8 possessions in the first half and have any hope of winning the football game.
No, East Rutherford had a tremendous season. They've improved that program the last few seasons. I mean, it's to be heralded in Rutherford County football anyway. But when you take on Shelby, I don't care where they have placed them as a 10th seat this time, you're going to get a good team. Land Farmer, by the way, completed over 71% of his passes in this game. That's nothing new. He's been fantastic. The running of Jonas Wood, absolutely incredible in that game. And we think about Jalen Tate and other great running backs. And now, this Wood kid is he's just going to keep that Shelby cycle going. Hollifield on defense now for the season, almost 100 tackles. So I tell you what, Shelby now with these 2 big wins going into round 3, I tell you what, they're going to be dangerous as they head on up to Mount Airy, I believe it is next time.
Absolutely. Coach, you talk about kickoff, if there's the final. Shelby 65-34. That was a running clock in the second half. It was 58-20 at halftime. And as Coach mentioned, 2 of East Rutherford's touchdowns in the first half, 2 of the 3 came on those kick returns. But you're talking about kick returns being a problem for Shelby against Burns a couple weeks ago. Kick return has been a problem for Shelby since you coached at Shelby.
Absolutely, it has.
I don't understand it.
Yeah.
But it's an issue, and you hope that's not an issue that could cost them a ball game, but had that game been a closer game, it could have been a problem.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, and I know this sounds strange, but you can almost converge on the ball too fast. A lot of people say, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. If you're going to converge on the football or leave your lane too early, it actually sets up for a reverse or a reverse of the field that you got 8 of your guys on this side of the hash. So, it's always been a problem, I guess, and it happens to every team. There's just some teams that take on that portrait of it, of their special teams. But, kicking that thing in between the numbers and the sideline with pinpoint accuracy a lot of times, if it goes out of bounds, it's better than them going, 70 yards for a touchdown. But shorten the field or condense the field to one side.
Kudos to the Shelby defense. They held the Pinkerton kid to 11 carries for 22 yards.
Yes.
That's a far cry from what was expected from him on Friday night. So, again, Shelby advances. We'll talk about their big matchup with Mount Airy and all the other matchups. And when we come back, you're watching Armchair Quarterback.
Cakes and cookies, toys and gifts, Christmas at your fingertips.
It's the shopping event of the season, the Southern Christmas Show, November 13th through 23rd at the Park Expo and Conference Center. Experience Santa's workshop, brimming with timeless childhood delights, twinkling lights, and festive cheer. Buy tickets early and save at southernchristmasshow.com.
Let's go to the Southern Christmas Show.
Welcome back into Armchair Quarterback. I'm David Allen, joined as always by Coach Guy Suttle, and also with us this week is Paul Foster. Paul's been like an every other week guy for us this year, so we appreciate that. And shout out to Rob Root on the heel train. Got out of the hospital, back at home feeling better, and we want to make sure our normal co-host in this on this show, we give him a little bit of playoff love there. From us to him, and hope he continues to recover and get better. Let's talk about our teams now as we advance now to the 3rd round of the state playoffs. We'll start with the Burns Bulldogs. This one's going to be a tough one, Coach, as they got to go up to Brevard. There you see the record.
Yeah.
The Blue Devils 11-0 on the season this year.
Yeah, and the number 1 seed in the West. It's going to be a tough game. I think that it could be one of the shorter playoff games in there because from what I understand is both of them like to run the football. I mean, Brevard likes to run the football. It's going to help Burns force Brevard maybe not to put 11 guys inside 5 yards by what they did to West Stanley last week in the throwing game. So that may actually help Brevard help the Burns Bulldogs against Brevard going into this game, is being able to throw the football.
Paul hadn't had a lot of experience with Brevard in quite some time. I remember Shelby went up there back in the early 2000s for a big playoff game, but I don't think any of our county teams have had to go up there recently in this type of atmosphere for third-round playoff games. So not exactly sure what we're getting into, but obviously at 11-0, they're decent.
Yeah, you know, sometimes we look at the mountain teams, and even when they've got the better records, we say that doesn't necessarily mean anything. You don't play maybe the competition we do in Cleveland County and all that. But I'm hearing a lot of good things about that Brevard team. So, you know, for Max Davis of Burns, you know, the Burns quarterback and their defense, they are really going to have their best game of the season. I think they've been really improving down the stretch, but this is really going to be a task for them. And you know, it could be a great ball game on Friday night.
Speaking of Max Davis, he did not play against West Stanley on Friday night with that turf toe. Held him out another week. I think he dressed and was ready to go potentially, but they held him. They didn't need him in that 49-7 win. There you see the brackets. Of course, Burns at Brevard. Then you got a 5-4 matchup with Pisgah and Mount Pleasant. Newton, Conover, and Maiden, that will be an absolute, there won't be a seat in the house on that one. Yeah. And then how about our boys down at Stuart Kramer, still alive in the 4A West as they advance to take on High Brighton. And what we know about High Brighton is they lost by 9 points to East Rutherford, or 11 points, I think it was, to East Rutherford. Mm-hmm. And Stuart Kramer might be licking their chops a little bit on that one, Coach.
Yeah, I think that is a very intriguing matchup right there between High Brighton and Stuart Kramer. Also, the Maiden Newton Conover, been part of a couple of those myself. That one's going to be huge also.
Absolutely. So we'll look forward to the results of those games so we can talk about them next week. Now let's move our attention now to the Crest Chargers. And boy, you see that one across the bottom of the screen, and you talking about licking your chops. And boys, now that's getting a lot of people excited. East Lincoln 10-1. Traveling to Crest, Coach, and you know, this one's got slobber knocker, as Lewis Carpenter would say, written all over it.
Yeah, and you know, and we've talked about this before we went on the air also, is how this is going to play in strength versus strength. We know Grant Lawless, exceptional quarterback at East Lincoln, plus the tight end, and you may have to help me with the name there. It leaves me right now, but they've got a tight end that's all-world also. But you're also going to be going against two Shrine Bowl defensive backs. So it's going to be strength against strength as far as that goes. And we haven't seen really, since the couple of miscues against Ashbrook, or really against Weddington, we haven't seen anybody stop Crest offense. They've stopped themselves a couple of times, but no defense has really come in and hammered them.
Well, Paul, you mentioned the stat that, you know, 8 of Crest wins this year have come by big-time points.
Yeah, 34 plus.
Right. The only close game, I guess, on the winning side for Crest was the Shelby game. All the rest of them have been blowouts. You know, how does that translate into when you're playing a very stout opponent? Where do you turn in the fourth quarter? And that's something that you might not know until you find out on Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about two exceptional quarterbacks going to war. You mentioned Lawless' name. He's thrown, let me just look at my notes right quick. Sorry, 32 touchdowns, 2,700 yards of passing, and so on. This is going to be different for Crest. They're used to just dominating in the first half. A lot of times the game's over in a lot of ways after a first quarter. This will probably not be the case. No. And even if East Lincoln doesn't have the best defense in the world, if their offense can keep moving the ball down the field, that puts Crest in a scenario they're not used to being in, and that is a close game. Will we still have a close game going into the fourth quarter? If we do, man, batten down the hatches, that's going to be a tremendous war to watch on Friday night.
No question about it. That one should be a good one. Let's look at the brackets there again. You see the controversial number 1 seed in South Point. They'll host Monroe. You see Crest and East Lincoln. The winners of those two games will match up. And then on the other side of the bracket, Hickory and Franklin. And then J.M. Robinson and Oak Grove. Don't know that much about Oak Grove other than they've been an opponent that Crest has seen the last couple years in the playoffs. And you never know. At a 10 seed, I mean, we've looked, hey, look, Kings Mountain and Shelby are both 10 seeds. So we know that 10 seed can be a quality opponent down there in the bottom half of that with J.M. Robinson. So we'll see how that has come out on Friday.
The Monroe game is the one that's interesting to me because I think that We know that South Point has had some issues with teams that are faster than they are. If you take South Point's losses, and Monroe is going to bring that speed factor to the game. They're going to have that one on their side of the ledger, and it'd be interesting. To me, that's a very interesting game, more so than the bottom half of the bracket. I know what you're saying about a 10 seed. I think J.M. Robinson is a good football team and will take care of Oak Grove. But that Monroe South Point game is going to be intriguing also.
So the Kings Mountain Mountaineers stayed alive. We talked about their win over TC, and now they get to go to Northern Guilford. And again, this is a 10-1 football team. Northern Guilford had no trouble on Friday night advancing in this bracket. And so, you start asking questions about this as far as Kings Mountain because of, Paul, you indicated from the 2 weeks ago, beat down they took against Crest and how they bounced back from that, which is great. But then you start going, well, when's that team maybe going to show up? And now here they got to go to Northern Guilford in the third round.
I think if you're Kings Mountain, after what happened at the end of the regular season, you had to quickly put that behind you. I heard on the coaches show for Kings Mountain that maybe they do it YouTube, online, whatever, that they pretty well went into talking about the first round of the playoffs, never talked about Chris. Maybe that was a good idea. Let's put it to bed. Let's forget about it. If Kings Mountain gets back to the way they started the season with this young team, where they beat Kings Mountain, they beat Shelby, if I'm not mistaken, then they had their struggles. I think they'll be ready to give this a good game, but can the young guys hang in there with a team that is so good? I don't know. Jerry and Drive's he's averaging 82, just over 82 yards per game. That's going to have to be big. And a guy by the name of Lathan Feemster on defense has been their leading tackler. Both those names are going to have to shine bright, and you can't have turnovers against this team if Kings Mountain survives.
Well, Coach, we've been saying, and we'll say it one more time, they got to throw the ball to Tex.
They got to get in these ball games. You have got to get the ball in the hands of your very best athletes, and this one is you got to get it to Tex. Northern Guilford, a little bit of history there going back. Crest lost to Northern Guilford in the state championship when they were in the East 2 years in a row by 1 point and by several points the next year. And then Northern Guilford had to come to Crest in the playoffs, fourth round, see who goes to the state championship. And it was an overtime win for Crest a number of years ago. This is a huge, huge place for Kings Mountain to be because they can get another shot against Ashbrook. I think Ashbrook could take care of Dudley. To me, the other intriguing game in this bracket is Watauga and Charlotte Catholic. We just don't. We always hear about Watauga doing so great, and then we get to this round, and it just doesn't happen for them.
Paul, this is where I think the Watauga train usually comes off the tracks. They'll be undefeated or maybe one loss at this point in the season, and they'll get to about the third round of the playoffs, and this is about the time. So I could see Charlotte Catholic taking out the Pioneers in this particular bracket as a possible upset.
I agree with you. When you look at the playoff postseason domination and runs that Charlotte Catholic has had, even if it's a team that's down, just on that alone means that you can go to the mountains and probably get a victory. I know Watauga's sitting at number one, but I would be with you, David. I believe Catholic's going to come out the winner. So
we'll see how that one goes. Kings Mountain again on the road at Northern Guilford. Final game of the week, Shelby going to Mount Airy. This one is 9-3 versus a 9-2. And Coach, I think Mount Airy's claiming that they played Shelby one other time, maybe back in 1923 is what I understand.
Well, I hope, you got to remember back then that it had to get enough money just to go travel. So, and some of those years back in the 20s and the 30s, if you look back at Shelby's overall record, they may not have played but 3 or 4 games. With that said, this to me, and I have not looked at the weather for Mount Airy, folks, a lot of this thinks that it's way up the mountains. No, it's further north. It's as far as the terrain, it's going to be pretty close to what we have. But the big thing for me in this game is, will Shelby go up there and take care of the football? In any third round game, it's turnovers and penalties and special teams that are going to rule the roost on this one. And I think Shelby goes up and they take care of business on special teams, limit the penalties, and take care of the football, they come home with a victory.
Paul, one big change for Shelby in that game against East Rutherford the other night, the penalties were down. The first quarter, there was not a penalty flag on the ground against either team. A couple of penalties early in the second quarter against Shelby, but they were able to overcome that. And honestly, penalties were not a factor, which we've been saying for about the last 5-6 weeks that Shelby had to clean that up, and they did clean that up Friday night.
Yeah, and you want nothing more than that when you get this far into the playoffs. Third round now, Shelby wants to do something they've done so often, and that is just to keep the train going. 100 and what is it? It's 135 points combined that they score in the first 2 playoff games, Shelby. So the question is going to be for Mount Airy, do they have the kind of defense that they can stop Shelby from constantly scoring? And like you said, Guy, if there's turnovers and if Mount Airy can produce something on special teams as well, maybe they hang in there and make this a game. That remains to be seen.
Well, if you're a Shelby fan, the team on that bracket that you want to pull for is the number 12 seed West Davidson. That is the only chance that Shelby gets a playoff game at Blount Memorial Stadium the rest of the way, because otherwise, the Golden Lions are on the road. But there you see it; they're out at Mount Airy. You got Walkertown and Eastern Randolph. That West Davidson team we talked about going to North Stanley. And then how about the Lincoln Wolves? They're still in it. They survived a 1-point win last Friday night, and they go to number 1 Mountain Heritage. That should be a good one. There are games for this week. Burns at Brevard, East Lincoln at Crest, Kings Mountain at Northern Guilford, Shelby at Mount Airy. This is a $14 ticket, folks. So if you are going to one of these games, it's a 7 o'clock start. Yes, I don't know if it's the 7 o'clock start throughout, but we do know that the Shelby Mount Airy game's a 7 o'clock start.
Crest is 7:30.
Yes.
Okay.
It's 7:30. It's staying the same. At
All right,
East Lincoln
so
is
just
7:30.
check with the school to make sure that you get there at the right time, because I hate for anybody to, you going all the way to Mount Airy, that's a 2-hour drive, plus you're going to go up there for 2 hours and you're thinking it's a 7:30 start and you come in 30 minutes late and Shelby's already up 21-0, you're going to be upset.
And the state tries to set the start time for this round at 7 o'clock, but it is up to both schools. So Crest game is at 7:30, but we should know Shelby and Mount Airy's at 7.
There you go. All right, so check with the folks at Kings Mountain at Northern Guilford and at Brevard to make sure you know what time to be there. All right, we have run through 30 minutes and all that, but the good news is Tim told us we have a couple of extra minutes today, so let's get quickly into college football, and we'll start with our winners and losers. And Coach, you want to go winner or you want to go loser?
I'm going to go loser. I'm going to go ahead and get Mr. Pless's loser in and my loser in. It's got to be the University of South Carolina Gamecocks. 30-3 against the number 3 ranked team in the country, and you get beat 33-30. It's just the curse of the chicken. So that's my loser.
Yeah, curse of the chicken, whatever you want to call it, but you're up 30-3 at halftime, Paul. You should not lose that football game, and yet the Gamecocks figured out a way to do so.
Yeah, if it was going to happen to anybody, the way this season's gone for South Carolina as a state college football, Clemson and the Gamecocks, we more expected from the Gamecocks. I really wasn't surprised.
You know, there was a stat that came out, and I hope I get this one. In the SEC, if a team was winning by 27 points at the half, the outcome was 179-0. Now it is 179-1.
Wow.
So,
Wouldn't you love to be associated with that stat? Paul, who's your loser for the week?
I got to go with, sadly, Duke football, because you had your destiny, in your hand. Even though you'd already lost 4 games in the ACC, you still had a chance to maybe get to Charlotte, make some noise, and you just did not look good in a big game against Virginia.
Yeah, I was going to say my losers of the week would be the Big 4 minus Wake Forest, because Wake Forest beat Carolina, and then NC State just got hammered by Miami. Virginia hammered Duke. So I would say all three of the 4 Big 4 losers of the week. Coach, who you got for your winner this week?
I'm going to have to go with Oklahoma. I think with them beating Alabama, the number 4 ranked team in the country at that point in time, 11 beating 4, it really helped their playoff chances moving forward. Oklahoma is my
All
winner.
right, Oklahoma the winner. Who you got, Paul?
I'm going to go with the Georgia Bulldogs because I think some people thought maybe Texas was really getting in on a hot streak, but you know, Georgia football keeps standing tall, and with Alabama losing, that kind of keeps their hopes alive to get a better seeding before it's all over with in the playoffs.
I'm going to combine a winner and a loser in one game here because I've already given a loser, so I don't want to give another loser, but really I'm giving another loser. JMU just putting the wood to Appalachian State.
Oh, yeah.
When the mighty have fallen, the Mountaineers, and Michael Allen does not want to hear me talking about his Mountaineers like this, but the Mountaineers have got a lot of work to do to get that thing turned around because they are not very good at this point. All right, let's turn our attentions quickly to the pros. The Carolina Panthers beat the Atlanta Falcons 30-0 the first time they played them, and then I thought they might get beat 30-0 yesterday, Coach, and then all of a sudden you flip that thing on and the Panthers will pull it out in overtime.
In overtime, and both of them had their possession, and they kicked the field goal, and they win. It just goes to show you in the NFL, it's not for long. Whatever you're winning, you're losing, whatever, it's not for long.
And who would have thought, Paul, that we're sitting here this Monday saying that the Carolina Panthers have a better record than the Kansas City Chiefs?
I know, and I'm sorry to laugh because I'm a Carolina fan. It's just almost hard to believe. But congratulations to Carolina finding a way. They beat Atlanta, of course, swept them this season. That's a great thing because you're in the same conference. But I tell you what, when you look at what's happening in the AFC now, you're seeing two teams really standing tall that I would not have seen it happening now, maybe later, but not now. And that is the Denver Broncos and the New England Patriots. Man, they're going to make it interesting.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the benefits of being a retired old man is that you get to sit around and listen to the guys on TV talk about the teams and who's the bad and who's the good and all that kind of stuff. The Philadelphia Eagles have been they have been on the receiving end of they're not very good, they're not very good, they're not very good, and they just keep beating people. And they did it again last night. They beat the Detroit Lions again. If the playoffs started today, the Chiefs, as I already mentioned, would be sitting on the sideline. The Detroit Lions, which last year were one of the best teams in the NFC, would also be out of the playoffs. And then how about the big game between the Rams and the Seahawks? The original Sam Darnold showed up. 4 interceptions, and the Rams beat them 21-19.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me, because I was waiting. You talk about the glass slipper. I was waiting for that one to break on Sam Darnold.
If this situation keeps going before his career is over with, I don't know how many teams in the NFL Sam Darnold is going to end up playing with. He may not even be in Seattle, in a year or two.
If he goes with the patches or the different jerseys, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Despite his 4 interceptions, they only lost by 2 points. So I think if he plays a little better, Seattle's still a pretty good team. So we'll see how it goes. That's hey, let's go back to our graphic right there. Burns at Brevard, East Lincoln at Crest, Kings Mountain at Northern Guilford, Shelby at Mount Airy. Well, the one I forgot, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned during the college segment, how about those Gardner Webb Bulldogs?
Yeah.
But I'm telling you what, they just keep on keeping on. And so, again, congrats to them for another win. 8 wins now on the season for Gardner Webb. I mean, that's an incredible year for the Running Bulldogs, so congrats to them. All right, I think we got it in about 5 minutes overtime. So, Tim, thanks for giving us that little bit of leeway this week. And hopefully next week we'll need it again because maybe we'll get 4 more victories out of these Cleveland County teams and we'll have plenty to talk about. But we'll do that next week right here on Armchair Quarterback.